Hello and welcome to this series on disruption. Thank you very much for joining us. So let me ask you, Pramod Bhasin, as someone who's disrupted the disruptors in some way at a very early stage. You brought in processing into this industry and you disrupted many industries in the United States. What we're trying to understand is, could there be another wave like that coming, or maybe it's already upon us, and then if so, how is it going to play out?
You know, I think we're at the very start of what I think will be a phase of disruption which will go on for the next 20 years. We're just beginning to explore what the combination of technology, access to information, connectivity, etc., is doing to people. And we're just beginning to explore new business models. So, you know, while we are all talking about Uber and everything else, which are truly disruptive, I often think that actually the iPhone is more disruptive to the, say, the music industry. You know, and in fact, Apple TV is trying to be very disruptive to the movie industry, etc. So the range of stuff that could happen is enormous. I mean, if you just start extrapolating beyond what could happen, machine learning could take over all coding and programming. Robots could take over all processing or security, for instance. Use of what has Uber done? It has really started using unutilized resources which were around and optimizing that use. So can I do that for systems within companies? Can these big companies which have giant systems which they don't really use to their optimal capacity, could they be let out and could they start competing with IBM and Accenture and everybody else? And then lastly, you know, we have computers, you have so much machinery here. Is there a way to link up our personal computers and create a mainframe out of that which everybody else can use, and it'll change the game dramatically. So I think this will go on for 20 years. I think we're just beginning to see the...
Right, and I'm going to ask you to draw out a few specific threads from that, but hold your thought there for a moment. So Sushma, what does disruption mean to you?
You know, to me, there are some fundamental underlying principles of disruption. Okay, disruption changes the way in which you consume, in which way you buy. It changes the way in which you interact, right? Fundamentally, it is something that shifts the underlying paradigm with which anything has occurred. Example, take music. Pramod talked about music, right? I mean, to me, the biggest contribution of disruption by Apple is disrupting the world of music, okay? From moving music, music that moves you, to music on the go. Okay, that's a huge shift in terms of paradigm. But there are some commonalities of disruption. Okay, disruption always does the following: it either shrinks distance, okay, it makes things cheaper or more affordable, it makes something get adopted much more pervasively, okay, and invariably brings in efficiency that you had otherwise not conceived, or convenience that you had never conceived. So this is disruption to me.
So now let us look at the three aspects of any particular industry. One is the consumer, the second one is the service or the product provider, and the third is a technology company which actually feeds into the solutions or technology to the service provider, the product provider. Where do you think the disruption or the forces of disruptions are coming from? Is it the consumer who is pushing it, or is it the new set of companies and service providers who are forcing the disruption so as to break the barriers, really come up with new business models to reach out to a larger number of customers? Because need of the customer is pretty much the same. I always wanted to hear music. I always wanted to hail a cab. So from the consumer's point of view, I'd see that there is a new need that has got created. Perhaps it is the same need that has got serviced and delivered far better, more economically. So from these three pillars that I am referring to, where do you think the biggest thrust to create the disruption is coming from?
You know, I think one other element I would add, if I may, to this process of disruption is convenience. So I think there's an awful lot of stuff we all do in our daily lives which is highly inconvenient. We've got used to it. where we take it for granted and therefore we live with it. Going through security in an airport. At some point that will disappear because you should be able to walk through an airport. They should be able to screen you just walking through almost anywhere and detect whether you've got anything or not. It's buying an insurance policy. At some point in time, you shouldn't have to go in and fill all those forms out. So there are, the guys who are going to get disrupted amongst the most, by the way, is financial services, right? Because right now it's all stacked against the borrower and it's all stacked for the lender, and that in itself will change. The guys who are going to change it, I really think, are going to be people who are visionaries in their own industries. They will use technology. So technology is getting to a level where it's getting to be so good that it's almost commoditizing itself. So lots of people can pull technology together to make it work.
But the biggest disruptors have never been in these businesses. I mean, there was no Airbnb, there was no Uber.
Yes.
So I don't know whether it is the legacy companies who are redefining their business models, or it is somebody completely out of your industry space who has come and disrupted you.
It could be out of your industry space, but all I'm saying, 100% agree. 100%, it could be out of your industry space, and it'll be somewhere who's watching an unmet consumer need. The consumer may not even know this is a need. And I think that's a very important part of what is happening in the world today. But I'm not sure it's necessarily going to be technologists only. That's the only point I'm making. I think it could be anyone.
See, I've got a very staunch view on how disruptions are created. I think disruptions by norm are created by people who haven't made or built a very successful model and are thriving in that success. See, success in a lot of senses actually prevents disruption because you're always guarding the best benefits of the success that you have experienced already. So I'm a huge believer that disruptions actually come from people who are young, small, nimble. It could be a startup, it could be an individual, and in the future, I think a lot could come from individuals. At least the new millennium, the new generation, 60-70% of them want to do things on their own. I think they are going to challenge the entire paradigm of this employee-employer relationship. How do we build and capitalize on crowdsource models? I don't think that it's definitely led by the consumer at the moment. Sure. I agree completely with Pramod that technology is just an enabler, but I think it comes down to individuals. Even large organizations, Google, Apple, these are at the end of the day one or two visionaries, mavericks who have been able to question the conventionalities that prevail and take a contrarian view. So I think disruption. I also believe one thing, I'm a little cynical that right now we talk so much about disruption, but then if you look at the life that has gone by, there have been disruptions at every point in time, Right,
so give us an illustration of what, let's say, you feel could be, I don't know if tectonic shift is the right word, but what's shifting right now? I mean, in terms of what your clients are asking you or your own organization is telling you?
See, I do believe that some industries are facing a tectonic shift, and the IT services industry definitely is one of them, right? But where I wouldn't say that the enterprises have pervasively accepted this norm, but definitely it has increased the curiosity level. I would say one step further from curiosity, maybe the experimentation level, to be able to say, well, we have engaged, we have consumed technology in a particular manner. Cost was an overarching driver, right? The industry is also maturing, and it is but natural that any time an industry matures, there's going to be higher expectations, because cost arbitrage can give you productivity increases up to a certain point in time. What's going to give you that continued productivity? Is that going to come by just throwing more bodies? But this is no different from how IT itself has evolved. At one point in time, we used to develop code. Then came various kinds of tools, techniques to decide whether his productivity is better than mine and his, So we are just talking about a quantum leap in terms of the extent of automation. Will it completely replace people? Probably not,
So my thoughts are that while the recent past, last 5 years, 7 years, we have seen the examples or anecdotal successes of individuals resulting into disruption because they were outside of the industry. But my sense is that the legacy players, the large successful businesses, are also responding to this entire disruptive forces in play, because otherwise how would an Indian IT industry face the pressure of a transformation that is all upon themselves unless your traditional customers are really pushing you to look into their processes, or you are protecting your own business model because you want to provide a new insight to them. Yeah. Is that true?
It's interesting. On one point, I do disagree with with you on this point. I think disruption is going to happen everywhere. It's not up to the, by the way, I think all statistics demonstrate that actually the period of most inventiveness is actually over 40, 45. It's not done by the young kids. That's a recent phenomenon, but around the world, history will tell you, Steve Jobs didn't get the iPhone when he was 28. He failed, but he got it when he was 45 or whatever age he was, yeah? So I think this notion that it's going to be done by these people, I think, is absolutely correct for some level. But the biggest disruptions will, in healthcare. Yeah. Let's look at some basic stuff. Fair enough, you've got Airbnb and we've got Uber. Let's look at healthcare. Where is it going to, how is insurance going to get disrupted? How is financial services going to, all of these are interesting models where I think current incumbents, so when Indirect came out in financial services, it was built by ING Bank. It was built by Indirect. E-Trade came out of financial services. So I just think it's the flavor of the month, quite honestly. And I honestly find, as you said, this phrase disruption also is probably the most overused phrase in the world today. But I do think that it sparked the curiosity of everybody. And therefore, every company I'm aware of is tweaking, retooling, trying out, experimenting, a whole range of stuff. The guys who will win in this, I really believe, are people who are meeting unanticipated needs. We don't even know this need exists. We don't even know that the customers really want this, but you come in with something which is so new and different. Let me take a particular example, healthcare. Now, what do we need in healthcare? Healthcare distribution is the issue, right? Reaching out to people is the issue. Well, at some point in time soon, telemedicine is going to get to a level where if we have 4G appropriately put through and broadband and all of those things, you can really disrupt that model almost completely on its head by having doctors almost sitting anywhere in the world who can attend to your needs almost anywhere else in the world. At some point in time, technology, combination of broadband, telecom will make that happen. It'll have a huge impact on how hospitals work, how doctors work, how you make money. And frankly, the benefits will be to the citizens of countries like India. I'm waiting for some of those things to happen, because then I believe we'll have reached the real productivity that we should get from
this
disruption.
This is more like an opportunity. I mean, it's not disruption in the sense that, it's not, you go to work tomorrow and you're saying, okay, half my organization might disappear.
No.
It's, it could be. I mean, a lot of your organization could disappear if this happens, I mean, you could be sitting in running hospital chains and, a substantial piece, 80% of what somebody judges in a hospital doesn't need to be done there. It can be done remotely. I mean, if you talk to Devi Shetty, he will tell you, unless, as he puts it very precisely, unless you need to cut a patient, I don't need to see him, right? So there's massive disruption going on here. I mean, just think about hospitals, the way it's played out, the doctors, the clinics, the everything else, and think about how that might play out. I mean, you could do this all from your home.
So Sushma, you talked about we used to be the coders, and then we started providing solutions in a different manner. How much do you think India is ready to take this transformative landscape that we are referring to here in terms of the IT industry? Do you think that the young graduates or engineers or even middle-level managers, do they have the skill sets to respond to this unanticipated need of their clients sitting in US or Western Europe? Have we changed our way of training our kids? Because 20 years ago, courses came up, MCA became important, and IITs came up to train a whole lot of people to be ready for Indian IT industry. How much of it is also now being done at changing our skill set mix?
So let me wear the hat of, the chair of IT Services Council for NASSCOM. And we've identified 2 or 3 areas which I think are going to be extremely critical for the industry. The first one is about bringing out people who are, we are calling it technology explorers, okay? The key that we want is people who can self-train themselves. There's got to be agility in terms of continuing to retrain yourself. I think the paradigm shift is going to be, this industry is operated with people who have skills, i.e. know certain technology languages or certain technologies, and sort of said, I'm that, and they have milked that particular skill. But going forward, what you're going to need in the people is the ability to just move and change on the dime by themselves. It's not just that you have an organization that's going to keep doing training courses. That's a very passive way to reskill yourself. So one of the things that I think the industry needs is that innate. So if I select people, I'm going to select people who are committed to saying, look, it doesn't matter whether I'm an Oracle person or an SAP person or a Microsoft person. Do I know ERP? Do I know databases? And how adeptly can I pick up anything else to solve a complex business problem? So the new breed of people have to have a deeper appreciation of business. They have to have a deeper appreciation of how to apply technology to solve a complex business problem. And they have to have it wired in them that you've got to keep learning and retraining yourself. So consequently, what is the NASSCOM IT Services Council doing? We are actually building a platform called Tech Engage, where we are going to draw technologists. See, I'm not sure that all enterprises will be able to promote individuals that may have this strong individual contributorship. This entire industry is based on pyramids, okay? That entire pyramid is going to now shake, okay? So you need platforms that can actually bring out people who've got the breadth of technology capabilities, who've got the DNA that is wired in them, that they have to continue to retrain themselves, and then consequently actually bring out ideas from these people. You asked me who are going to be the fast adopters of this disruption. Is it going to be the smaller, nimbler companies or the larger? No, I don't think it has got, yes, size to some extent could help, okay, yes, but I think it's culture, okay. What is the culture? I think the larger companies can definitely, if they take a very systematized approach to disruption. I know it's sort of an oxymoron in a way, but what is a strategy exercise at the end of the day? I mean, if you constantly start thinking, who is going to be your disruptor, where is the disruption going to come? So I think less than whether it is the smaller companies or the larger companies, I think definitely culture has as a bias. The second is disruption by its very nature, okay, is something that comes, shakes the paradigm, okay, and then there are people who adopt it and then make steady stream businesses out of it, right? And then comes in another shock. A disruption to me is a shock. It could be a technology shock, it could be a capital shock, it could be a consumer shock of some kind or the other, which changes the way in things. So disruption by its very definition is not self-sustaining, all right? Because disruption changes the paradigm, somebody adopts it, makes it mature, consolidates, something comes out.
And then the next one, next wave comes in.
Right, so we've run out of time almost. So you want to sum up very quickly, Vineet?
No, I think the point that you made is very valid. I think the reason why a firm like Google forges ahead and continues to be at the forefront of technology, whether disruptive or not, or looking at unanticipated speed, is very much the culture, the way it strategizes its next growth avenue that will come about. So I completely agree with you that it has nothing to do with, and it supports the studies also that you have referred to, Pramod, here, that it is not really the 22-year-old or the 25-year-old or a company in the garage anymore. It is really recognizing the fact that there are things that can be done differently. There are ways in which you can service your customer more efficiently, more economically, more pervasively. Right. All barriers are coming down. Organizations are changing in terms of what they could do today. They are actually willing to do now 3 more things which were not even a part of their core businesses, just because the technology allows them to do it that much more.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So just last word, Pramod. So once upon a time, Jack Welch thought that there is India, and maybe I could move processes there, and attempt to sort of bring down costs, rationalize the entire workflow, and so on. What could happen next, and where could the next Jack Welch be sitting?
Yes. Well, I must say one thing though, if you'll allow me. Jack Welch never thought that. Actually, it was my idea, and he didn't like it for the first 3 years. And then I convinced him, and then he said, "Okay, I'll do it." But it took me 3 years to get him to the table. I think really, as I said, there are 3 or 4 big areas that I think bear disruption. Healthcare, massively. It's too inefficient, it's too fragmented, it's far worse than the Uber example, for instance, in terms of its need for patient care to just work to him. Financial services. Financial services around the world is archaic in the way it's run, and insurance I include in that. Archaic in the way it's run, it's too paper intensive, takes too long, it's not customer responsive.
And
cost is too high. I think that will stand to change, and there will be new people. I'm going to say one other thing. I think the next disruptors are also going to be sitting in China. They are very interesting as to what they're doing out there. They're trying all kinds of stuff, and I think we'll hopefully sitting in China, and hopefully a few sitting here right here in India.
Right, that's a good note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.